Good morning, good morning, good morning, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do the disclaimers, we're going to be shooting through this kind of relatively quick. I took this day off because get this, short rant, very short. The drain for the air conditioner is very badly designed in this building. Both our water drains in there as well as the neighbors. So during the summers, when we have to have the air on, very obviously, I live in Missouri, and you don't want to know what our summers are like without it. It starts like just soaking the hallway. And my God, you want to talk about smell. Most people can't smell it, but then there's my hypersensory ass, and I can smell it. It's making me nuts. But this place is kind of, well, let's face it, it's pretty dirty. So I took today off so that I can thoroughly clean it. But I'm going to do it over a long period of time because there's quite a bit of work to be done. So I'm going to be doing videos in between as I get my breaks. Alright, in the description box, folks, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called trouble male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You've got an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his job. And you've got a governor off his nuts. So send help. Read that article. Share it on all your social media. Got the other pertinent links to the Stomp the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masaba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the 10 plates, the link to this analysis done in 1999 by Dr. Fredda, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org, shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use those headphones, all right? All right, this channel, trigger warning, it's marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is advised. Now, once again, Dr. Fredda is talking about something which I am very intimately familiar. One of my areas of expertise working for my state is specifically transition age and transition services. So we're going to delve into this here to where we left off the other day, shall we? Let's get to it. Also, warning. Between dealing with the wet carpet and the general usual allergies. I'm getting hit bad, folks, so apologies in advance for any like snorting, throat noises, sneezes, any coughing, anything of that nature, all right? All right, let's get to it. This is going to be relatively short. I always say that, and it always ends up not being short. We'll see. We'll see. Evaluation of qualitative outcomes. It is not sufficient to focus merely on the reduction of problem behaviors. Thank you. A treatment program cannot only focus simply on the behaviors as from a treatment perspective as well as transition services perspective. Because remember, I hate using this term, but to put it this way, it's the symptom, not the cause. Let me say it again. If all you're doing is treating the symptoms, then what is causing the symptoms goes untreated. And you know what happens when, you don't treat. You see where I'm going here, right? It doesn't help. Okay? If you have an underlying issue where what's bothering people is simply a byproduct, you cannot actually effectively treat the byproduct without treating the actual problem that's causing it in the first place. This is basic logic 101. I don't have to be a professional to be able to explain that to y'all. But let's move on here. Evaluation must extend beyond the reduction of isolated problem behaviors and should include measurement of variables that might affect overall emotional well-being, such as social relationships, time spent with peers without disabilities, and participation in preferred work, home, and leisure activities, and opportunities for self-determination. Yes, any good program worth its salt has this as their basics. This is baseline, folks. Literal baseline. As exhausting as it is from the moment you hit the service system, the minute you're diagnosed and you've hit the service system, you've got to think ahead. You have to. Okay? When you're doing that full functional assessment, the idea is to see exactly where you are. We're not just talking about the problem behaviors. One that is worth its salt is going to see you where you are on every single aspect of your life. Where are we strong? Where do we need to build? And God, I hate to say it because it annoys me. It's a question that's asked literally every job interview and kind of wants to make me like rip my eyeballs out. But where do you want to be in 10 years? Basically very strongly applies here. You get a transition program or a program period worth its salt. You cannot just focus on, well, this is the part that annoys neurotypicals. It's not how any of this works. You got to get a baseline of where you are, where the strengths are, because where those strengths can take you, if the proper things are put to place to build on, you can end up with a career. Which is what happened to me. Granted, not the career I actually went to school for, but a career nonetheless. I have above average for my particular atypical brain set communication skills. I am highly observational. I have a lot of gifts that kind of really put me onto the path that I went to where I eventually worked for the state and became an advocate on both a state and national level. Okay? All of that stems back from when I got diagnosed at 18. My team for my treatment program as part of social activities, saw my strengths, saw that potential for advocacy and where it could take me, and got me involved in groups like Judavine while I was still in high school. And that was kind of really the catalyst, because I went with Judavine and a few of the parents and the other kids about around my age bracket to my state capital. This is how this all started. About around circa, I believe it was 2003, 2004. And I used what they noticed as those communication skills with my representative, which was for the Webster County. After which, I had parents. This was me that day. Arm here, I'm getting like this all day long, with parents dragging me to their representatives. It was very much one morning I woke up and suddenly I was a part of the neurodiversity movement before I even knew what hit me. I'm rambling. My point is, though, any transition program or treatment program, period, knows that you cannot just hyper-focus in one area. Because if you do, your treatment program is incomplete and doesn't even come close to preparing the person for the real world. If you are not doing an actual, true, full, functional assessment to find out where that person is, where their strengths are, where they are in the totality of who in their personhood, you might as well kick a can down the road. Okay? In particular, because autistics is also, again, niche, transition services in particular for neurodivergent folks. There's a reason why programs today, as opposed to years ago, really work to build on strengths, and it's for exactly the reason that I told you. Most of us do not go seeking out social interactions and situations on our own. We don't, because we know we're different from day one, whether we have a name for it or not. We're targeted, we're bullied, we're stared at. Going out and being social for a world that likes to stare, glare, point, and taunt is not our idea of a good time. So if you want to work on those social relationships and get us a relationship with the community that we're in to help enlarge that circle of support, the very best way to do it is to know not just what the problems are, but where the strengths are. What are your talents? What are you strong in? Because you can use those to build in the areas that she's speaking about. Social relationships, time spent with peers without disabilities. Again, this is why I champion role-playing, just not in the traditional therapy setting. Things like D&D, Shadowrun. I'm a huge champion for these because, first of all, in spite of what everybody thinks, we autistics are not stupid. Okay? Do you know how bored we get with those clinical role-playing games? Yeah. Please shoot me. On the other hand, when you introduce role-playing games that is meant for fun, particularly since there is a lot of us that like sci-fi, or we very much like fantasy, and especially those of us who are complete, unabashed, utter Tolkien nerds. Something like that can create a social situation and help build social relationships, because, as I've stated previously, neurotypical nerds exist. They're not going to show up at my therapy session to play out some weird role-playing thing that sounds like it's from rote and makes you want to blow your brains out. It's so boring. What they will participate in, though, is a weekly D&D night. Get what I'm saying? I built my social relationships different. It was all done within advocacy. And what really brought me out of my self-imposed shell, which I was so deep in, I could barely see the light of day, was simply interacting with my neurodivergent peers. That opportunity that was provided for me through my program changed my entire life. It helped me deal with the social and communication issues that I was still having at the time. It allowed me to start building on my own, independent of my staff, relationships out in my community amongst my neurotypical peers. You see where I'm going with this here, right? That's what a good treatment program does. The JRC does none of it. None of it. That's why when they sit there and say, but we have transition services, I don't know whether to slam my head into the wall to avoid the stupid or laugh until I fall over, croak, and die from lack of oxygen. Because they don't even have the basic foundation to provide a treatment and educational program that is going to actually truly benefit them in life. We're going to go ahead and close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit those comments. I do appreciate your time this morning, folks. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I will see you next vid after I finish cleaning the monstrosity that is my kitchen at the moment. Bye-bye, everyone.